Room 217 at the Stanley Hotel is infamous for its eerie and paranormal reputation. On January 12, 2018, a guest staying in this haunted room experienced a series of unsettling events that have since become the subject of much speculation and intrigue. The guest, a middle-aged man traveling alone, had specifically requested to stay in room 217 due to its storied history. That evening, as the guest settled into the room, he noticed an unusual chill in the air despite the room's heating being set to a comfortable temperature. As he tried to relax, he began to hear soft, indistinguishable whispers, almost like a conversation just beyond the edge of his hearing. Around midnight, he was startled awake by the sight of a ghostly figure moving about the room. The apparition appeared to be a woman dressed in old-fashioned maid's attire, resembling Elizabeth Wilson, a former housekeeper who had worked at the Stanley Hotel. She was seen tidying up, smoothing out the bed covers, and arranging the furniture with an uncanny precision. The guest watched in astonishment as objects such as a book and a lamp moved on their own accord, seemingly guided by unseen hands. The atmosphere in the room grew increasingly strange as the guest heard disembodied voices, speaking in hushed tones, but could not make out any clear words. Additionally, the lights in the room began to flicker intermittently, adding to the growing sense of unease. The guest felt a profound sense of being observed and reported that the temperature in the room fluctuated dramatically, from icy cold to unusually warm, throughout the night. The experience left the guest deeply unsettled, and upon checking out, he recounted his harrowing night to the hotel staff, who have since documented similar reports. Room 217 remains a focal point for those interested in the paranormal, with many visitors eager to experience its ghostly phenomena firsthand. Overtown Bridge, a centuries-old stone arch bridge spanning the Overtown Burn near Dumbarton, Scotland, is infamous for its eerie occurrences and the mysterious deaths of animals. Constructed in 1895, the bridge's haunting reputation is linked to a series of inexplicable events and tragedies, particularly involving dogs that have leapt to their deaths from its parapets. On the evening of May 16, 2019, a team of experienced paranormal investigators set out to explore the bridge's sinister reputation. As twilight descended and the light dimmed, the atmosphere became palpably tense. The investigators set up their equipment, including high-definition cameras, EMF meters, and EVP recorders, positioned strategically along the bridge's length and surrounding areas known for reported paranormal activity. As the night deepened, the team began to experience unsettling phenomena. At around 9:45 p.m., one of the investigators captured on camera what appeared to be indistinct, shadowy figures moving just beyond the bridge's edge. These figures seemed to flicker in and out of view, almost as if they were attempting to materialize from the dense, encroaching fog. The investigators also reported hearing a series of unexplained noises, faint whispers carried by the wind, a distant, eerie wail that seemed to echo from the depths of the ravine below, and the sudden, inexplicable sound of what resembled a dog's bark, though no animals were present. The EVP recordings, reviewed later, revealed unsettling disembodied voices speaking phrases like, "Come closer," and, "Why do you leave?" These voices were chillingly clear, despite the ambient noise and wind. Adding to the night's unsettling atmosphere, a sudden, bone-chilling breeze swept across the bridge, despite the absence of any weather reports indicating strong winds in the area. The investigators noted that this cold draft seemed to move in erratic patterns, as if responding to their presence. The combination of shadowy figures, unexplained noises, and the unnerving EVP recordings further cemented Overtown Bridge's reputation as a hotspot for supernatural activity. The bridge's dark history, marked by the inexplicable deaths of numerous dogs, only adds to its haunting allure, making it a focal point for those intrigued by the paranormal. The Old Charleston Jail, an imposing historic structure with a grim past, has long been reputed to be one of the most haunted places in the United States. Built in 1802, the jail housed some of the South's most notorious criminals, including pirates, Civil War prisoners, and the infamous Lavinia Fisher, reputed to be America's first female serial killer. The stories of cruelty, suffering, and death within its walls have permeated its very foundation, making it a hotspot for paranormal enthusiasts. On the evening of July 4, 2016, a group of visitors joined a ghost tour, eager to experience the jail's supernatural side. As the group moved through the dark, narrow corridors, the atmosphere grew heavy with an unsettling presence. At around 10:30 p.m., while the guide recounted tales of past inmates, several visitors reported seeing a ghostly figure of a man in a tattered prison uniform. The apparition appeared to be aimlessly wandering through the decaying cells, his expression one of anguish and despair. The sighting was so vivid that a few members of the group initially thought it was part of the tour's theatrics, only to realize moments later that there were no actors involved. The chilling realization sent shivers down their spines. Adding to the eerie experience, the group's EVP, electronic voice phenomena, recordings captured disturbing, disembodied voices. When the recordings were reviewed later, the investigators were shocked to hear phrases like, "Help me," and "Get out." The voices were faint but unmistakable, resonating with a sense of desperation and hopelessness. The combination of visual and auditory phenomena left no doubt in the minds of the visitors that night. The old Charleston jail remains a potent relic of the past, where the echoes of suffering and death continue to linger, refusing to fade away. The experience only solidified the jail's reputation as a site of intense paranormal activity, drawing even more curious souls to explore its haunted halls. Aokigahara Forest, known as the Suicide Forest, has a dark reputation that attracts both thrill-seekers and those intrigued by the macabre. On March 22, 2015, a group of explorers ventured into the dense woods, seeking to uncover the mysteries shrouded within its confines. As they navigated the labyrinthine trails, an unsettling silence enveloped them, broken only by the rustling of leaves and their own footsteps. Around midday, the group began hearing faint, mournful cries that seemed to echo through the trees. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't pinpoint the source of the sounds. Some explorers described the cries as heart-wrenching, filled with sorrow and despair. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the forest grew darker, and an oppressive sense of unease settled over them. Their cameras, intended to document the journey, captured unsettling footage. In the shadows between the trees, ghostly shapes seemed to materialize, flickering in and out of view. One explorer swore he saw a figure standing silently among the trees, only for it to vanish when approached. The sense of despair among the group grew palpable, with some members reporting feelings of intense sadness and dread, seemingly influenced by the forest's tragic history of suicides. Hoia Forest, situated near Cluj-Napoca in Romania, is shrouded in a veil of mystery and paranormal lore. On September 12, 2008, a group of 6 friends set out to explore this enigmatic forest, lured by its infamous reputation and the eerie stories surrounding it. They arrived at the forest edge around 11 p.m., a time when the atmosphere felt particularly dense and unsettling. The dense canopy overhead filtered the moonlight into an eerie, ghostly glow, adding to the forest's ominous ambience. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the usual sounds of the night, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, seemed to fade, replaced by an unsettling silence that seemed to press in on them from all sides. The hikers began to notice strange lights flickering between the trees. At first, they thought it was their imagination, but the lights became more defined, small, spherical orbs that drifted through the trees with a deliberate, almost sentient movement. One of the hikers, eager to document the experience, began snapping photos with his camera. In one of the images, a glowing orb of light appeared to float just above the forest floor, captured with an unsettling clarity. Compounding their unease, several members of the group felt a pervasive sensation of being watched. The hairs on the back of their necks stood on end, and each rustling sound in the distance seemed amplified, as though the forest itself was alive and scrutinizing their every move. Shadows moved in the periphery of their vision, too swift to be attributed to any natural source. The forest, with its dark history of ghostly sightings and unexplained phenomena, seemed to come alive around them. The group's sense of dread intensified, and they quickly made their way back to safety, their hearts racing and their minds grappling with the inexplicable experiences they had just endured. The Hoya Forest's reputation as a hotspot for paranormal activity had been vividly confirmed in their encounter that night. The Villisca Axe Murder House, located in Villisca, Iowa, is infamous for the gruesome unsolved murders that occurred there in 1912, where 8 people, including 6 children, were brutally killed. Over the years, the house has garnered a reputation for being one of the most haunted locations in the United States. On a chilly night in October 2014, a group of paranormal investigators decided to spend the night in the house, seeking to uncover evidence of the supernatural activity that so many had reported. As the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere within the house became heavy and oppressive. The investigators set up their equipment in various rooms, including the children's bedroom and the attic where the killer was believed to have hidden. Almost immediately, they began to experience unusual phenomena. Shadowy figures flitted in and out of their peripheral vision, disappearing before they could be fully seen. In the silence, they could hear faint, eerie voices, as though distant whispers were trying to communicate with them. As the night wore on, the investigators reported hearing phantom footsteps echoing through the house. The sounds were unnerving, often seeming to come from rooms that were known to be empty. At one point, an investigator stationed in the children's room felt a cold, unseen hand brush against his arm, sending shivers down his spine. Another team member captured a chilling EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, of a child crying out for help, which seemed to confirm the presence of restless spirits. The group also experienced sudden drops in temperature, with certain spots in the house becoming icy cold without any apparent cause. Their equipment malfunctioned repeatedly, cameras would turn off inexplicably, and EMF meters spiked erratically, indicating strong, fluctuating electromagnetic fields. Despite the unsettling experiences, the investigators pressed on, determined to gather as much evidence as possible. By dawn, the team was both exhausted and exhilarated, having collected a wealth of unexplained audio and visual data. Their experience at the Villisca Axe Murder House left them convinced of its haunting, adding another layer to the legend of this tragic and eerie location. The reports of shadowy figures, eerie voices, and phantom footsteps continue to draw paranormal enthusiasts and thrill seekers to the house, each hoping to glimpse the ghosts of the past. St. James Cemetery in Liverpool is renowned for its paranormal activity, steeped in history and ghostly lore. On the night of August 15, 2006, a group of 4 friends decided to visit the cemetery, intrigued by its eerie reputation. They arrived just after midnight, the moon casting long shadows over the ancient tombstones, and the air thick with a palpable sense of history and mystery. By 1:30 a.m., they found themselves near an old, weathered grave, sharing whispered stories of past hauntings. As they were speaking, a chilling breeze swept through the cemetery, rustling the leaves and causing an uncanny silence to fall over the group. Suddenly, one of the friends noticed a figure standing near a particular grave. It was a translucent woman, dressed in Victorian-era clothing, her form shimmering faintly in the moonlight. Her expression was mournful, and she seemed to be in deep sorrow. The group stood frozen, their breath catching in their throats, as they watched the ghostly figure. The friends slowly approached the apparition, their curiosity mingled with fear. As they drew nearer, the temperature around them dropped dramatically, and they were enveloped in an overwhelming sense of sorrow, as if the woman's sadness had become their own. Just as they were about to reach out, the apparition suddenly vanished, leaving the friends staring at the empty space where she had stood moments before. In a bid to capture evidence of the sighting, the friends attempted to take photographs. However, their cameras inexplicably malfunctioned, refusing to operate despite having full batteries. The sense of the supernatural was undeniable, and the malfunctioning equipment only added to their conviction that they had encountered something otherworldly. St. James Cemetery's reputation for hauntings has been bolstered by numerous similar reports over the years. Ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts frequently visit the site, hoping to experience its supernatural phenomena firsthand. The friends left the cemetery that night, deeply affected by their encounter, and their story has since become one of the many chilling tales associated with this historic graveyard. On the night of June 15, 2001, the Forbidden City in Beijing, a place steeped in centuries of history and legend, became the scene of an eerie encounter that would be etched into the annals of paranormal lore. A night guard, well versed in the layout and history of the ancient palace complex, was performing his routine patrol under the pale moonlight. The vast courtyards and grand halls were enveloped in an almost palpable silence, the only sound being the soft rustle of the night breeze against the ancient structures. Around 1 a.m., as the guard made his way through the labyrinthine pathways near the Hall of Supreme Harmony, he noticed an unusual figure in the distance. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light or his tired eyes playing games with him. However, as he moved closer, the figure became clearer. It was a spectral apparition, dressed in the elaborate and ornate attire of ancient Chinese royalty, complete with flowing robes and an intricate headdress. The figure seemed to glide effortlessly over the ground, moving with an ethereal grace that sent chills down the guard's spine. Summoning his courage, the guard cautiously approached the figure, hoping to get a better look. As he drew nearer, the apparition suddenly stopped and turned its head toward him. The guard felt a wave of cold air wash over him, and his heart pounded in his chest. Just as he was about to call out, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving no trace behind. In the moments following the apparition's disappearance, the guard began to hear faint, disembodied voices echoing through the empty corridors. The sounds were indistinct but carried an unmistakable tone of sorrow and longing. Adding to the surreal experience, he also heard the distant strains of ancient Chinese music, as if a long-forgotten court orchestra was performing somewhere deep within the Forbidden City's walls. Shaken by the encounter, the guard reported the incident to his superiors, who listened with a mix of skepticism and intrigue. The Forbidden City, with its long and storied past, has been the subject of numerous ghost sightings and paranormal reports over the years. Many believe that the spirits of past emperors, concubines, and servants still linger within its ancient walls, unable or unwilling to leave the place they once called home. The guard's experience that night added another layer to the mystical and haunted reputation of the Forbidden City, a place where history and the supernatural seem to intersect, creating an atmosphere rich with mystery and the unknown. On December 5, 2020, a late-night shift at the Ekaterinburg Theater turned into an unforgettable experience for one of its staff members. The theater, renowned for its rich history and story performances, was unusually quiet as the staff member carried out routine tasks. It was around 1 a.m. when the atmosphere in the building began to shift from mundane to eerie. As the staff member walked across the dimly lit lobby, preparing to lock up for the night, a strange sensation of being watched began to creep over them. They attributed it to fatigue until their attention was drawn to the stage area, which was bathed in a faint, ghostly light coming from the old stage lamps. The staff member, intrigued by the odd illumination, approached the stage to investigate. As they reached the edge of the stage, the staff member's eyes widened in disbelief. A spectral figure appeared to materialize before them, a woman dressed in vintage theater attire from a bygone era. The figure wore a lavish gown with intricate details, reminiscent of costumes from the early 20th century, and her presence seemed to shimmer with an ethereal glow. She moved gracefully across the stage, her movements fluid and almost dance-like, as though she were rehearsing for a performance that had long been forgotten. The staff member, though initially frozen in awe, mustered the courage to approach the apparition. As they stepped closer, the figure suddenly stopped and turned towards them. There was an otherworldly sadness in her eyes, which seemed to convey a sense of longing and melancholy. Just as the staff member reached out, the figure dissipated into thin air, leaving only the silence of the empty theater. The encounter left the staff member shaken and intrigued. The Ekaterinburg Theater, with its long history of dramatic performances and behind-the-scenes stories, has long been the subject of various ghostly reports. The sighting of the apparition added a new chapter to the theater's haunted reputation, making it a point of interest for paranormal investigators and enthusiasts alike. Stories of spectral figures and unexplained occurrences continue to fuel the belief that the theater's past is still very much alive, haunting its halls with echoes of performances and stories long past.